Now that the mission to Berlin, wasn't there some kind of congressional?
Well, later on, we were awarded what they call a unit citation. And I don't know if that is a medal or merely a ribbon. The people who had gotten a unit citation for our group previous to our arrival, for the Memmingen raid, where the whole group was almost wiped out, wore a little rectangular metal-like device with a blue plain cloth insert. And whether that is the unit citation or whether, along with a piece of paper, or that represents a medal which was not issued, I don't know because I never got one. But we were awarded that. My last mission, as it turns out, 34th one, was flown on April the 25th. And we were going again to Linz, Austria. The unusual thing about this one was that the flak looked different when it exploded. And in fact, it was not the flak that we knew that created shrapnel. It was flak that spit out phosphorus. And when the phosphorus would get into the air, it would catch on fire. And we, in fact, took a hit in our radio room. And as we came off the target, the radio operator came on, said, "I've got a fire in here." And with the help of the waste gunners, however, it was just a small piece, I guess, of phosphorus, they were able to put it out. Now, how they did it, I do not recall, but we had no problem as a result of that.
Huh.
As I said, we got up several times for briefing for flights after that, but they never materialized, and so I ended the tour of duty at 34 missions and returned to the States.
Any, regardless of what the mission was, or in terms of that paper, does anything stand out? Anything like planes getting flamed or shot down, or your gunners taking their enemy planes out, or any of that kind of thing?
No, like I say, we had little contact with their fighters. By that time, they'd been softened up. This being near the end of the war, they did not have the facilities, I guess. They had a shortage of oil.
Yeah.
They had a shortage of bearings. All bearing plants were heavily hit. And until they came up with the jets, there was no problem.
What about, could you hear the bombs when you were released? Could you hear the whistle?
No.
Too much roar from the engine.
Well, you're up too high.
Okay. Could you see the hits?
Now what? Again, no. When you dropped the bombs, it lightened the plane so much that you did get a certain amount of lift.
Okay.
You knew when the bombs went away.
It's the only sensation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you immediately had a rally, one direction or pre-arranged, one direction or the other, to get out of the flak area. And you could not see underneath you.
Okay.
Now a number of ships were photograph ships.
Oh, okay.
They would try to take pictures. And
would you be able to see from, like, if you were flying in the back, what did you call the guys in the back? Tail something Charlie, or?
Tail end Charlie?
Tail end Charlie.
Yeah.
Could you see what the guys in front of you had done? Could you see the bombs come out? Or?
No, because it took, by the time, when you were dropping from anywhere from 18,000 to 27,000 feet, that would be the altitude you'd go in at, you cut the bombs loose and you took off. Well, by the time the bombs hit the ground, you were out of there. You weren't looking back. Plus, you were still flying formation, and so maybe some of the people on the crew could look back. Tail gunner probably would have a beautiful view of what was going on. But we were still in formation, and you had to be alert to that. So you went into somebody.
Talked about going to Innsbruck. That's in the Alps, isn't it?
Yeah, in the Southern Alps, right, in southern Austria.
So was that scenic, other than what you were?
Oh yes, the Alps
was
was very beautiful.
Okay.
On a few occasions we went to Munich. I guess we only went there a couple times. So you're getting, and that's southern Germany, and so you saw the Alps there. On most of our flights, if we were going into Austria, we would go through northern Italy, and we would be to the east of where the Alps were. But I can recall the one flight to Munich, which was on apparently November 22nd, because I thought we went there more than once, but I don't see that here. We were as high as we could go. The plane would not go any higher because of the thin air.
The ceiling.
And we were about 29,000 feet in that area. We were flying tail end Charlie that day, and we were right in the clouds. The rest of the formation was above the clouds. And we kept calling up to them, even though we were supposed to maintain radio silence, that they had to get up a little bit, or we had to back off, because we could not see the planes ahead of us because of being sitting in the clouds.
Did you ever have any other trouble with weather? Did you get into storms or
Oh no,
turbulence or any of that stuff?
no, we would, unfortunately, on several occasions, we would go up and we couldn't drop our bombs because everything at the primary target was overcast and everything at the alternate target was overcast. And you had to rely on the visual contact
Because of the Norden bomb sight.
because of the Norden bomb sight. So we would just come back. And that, of course, made it a little tricky too when you were coming back with the bombs in, because they had to get in there and put pins back in them so they wouldn't explode. And we did have an occasion, didn't involve me, where a bomb fell out of the bomb bay door, out of the bomb bay on landing. It did not explode because of the pin, but it gave them a few anxious moments. Everybody ran for cover. So,
Like, do you have any memories of your days off, planes coming back from a mission, shot up, planes you couldn't believe
yes.
were able to make it back?
We had some pictures in there that on missions I was not on, where all of the skin would be blown off on one side of a plane, for example. And there was at least one occasion where our plane came back on two engines, which was pretty hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
On our days off, we would usually hitch a ride with a supply truck going into the town of Foggia, which was maybe 20 or 30 miles or more south of us. We were immediately north of a town called Lucera, and it was in hilly country with winding dirt roads because of the hills. We would ride in with them and then spend the day at the USO or go to the big PX. We had a small one on the base, but this was a big one. And then when we got ready to come home, we would go to the edge of town and hitchhike a ride. And we'd get, maybe if lucky, we'd get a truck going back to our base. We were the second most northern out of the town, and so we didn't always accomplish that. But we'd get a ride part way, and we'd get off, and then we'd start hitchhiking again.
Did you go into town and have a couple of beers and blow off a little steam?
Yeah, yeah.
Describe, if you can recall, a typical mission day. What you remember about the time you woke up, what you were feeling, be it anxiousness or nervousness or whatever, the briefing, etc.
Well, they would come around and call us. They had a list of who was supposed to fly each day. And they would come, in our case, they would do the same thing in the enlisted men's quarters, and in our area they'd come around and wake us up. We usually would get to the briefing room a little after 6 or 6:30, 6 o'clock, because we'd have a light breakfast. I can't even remember what it was. It wasn't very good because we had no fresh eggs or fresh fruit or stuff like that. We would get into the briefing room, and at the end of it, with a small platform, was a huge map of Europe. And on it, using colored yarn, they would have pinned up the route we were to fly and the target we were to attack. And they would brief us to the extent they had knowledge on what flak we might encounter along the way. And en route, we would avoid flak areas.
Oh, okay.
In other words, if Milan was heavily defended by flak,
Right.
when we were on our way up, we would avoid Milan. And if Linz was heavily defended, as it was, and we were going to a smaller target elsewhere, north of there, we would, again, the route would be planned to avoid it, so that we didn't get any more trouble than we really wanted.
They have reconnaissance photos in the briefing sessions? So
Not usually, no,
No?
no, no. But they
What-
would give maps which had photos of the target. They would give that to the lead ships,
Okay.
bombardier. At the end of the meeting, they would have a time hack. In other words, he would say, it is now 6:36 and 50 seconds. It's now 6:37, hack. And everybody had a GI issue watch, and they would have it set, and they'd hit it. So everybody had exactly the same time. And you would leave the briefing area, room, pile into the back end of trucks, and be transported out to the line where the planes were.
Did you take the same plane, or did
No.
you just whatever was available?
You were assigned a plane each time, and you knew what it was they give you the last four numbers,
Okay.
serial numbers of the plane.
So unlike the movies where you had a logo painted on
Yeah.
the side of some lady and that was your plane.
A few of them had some logos, but we didn't have the artists, I guess, that's what it takes. Because of when we got to the line, we went into the equipment area, room, and picked up parachutes and a bag which contained, some extra supplies, some maps on silk of the area.
Why silk?
I don't know, except maybe they'd last. And another packet which had $48 of American money.
Why 48?
I don't know how they picked $48, but that's what it was.
One for every state.
Yeah. And of course, we all had little pictures that had been taken ahead of time that made us look like peasants, so that if we got shot down and somebody could forge a passport for us, we had a picture of ourselves.
Huh.
And that had been done in Savannah, Georgia before we left, and it consisted of a suit that was sewn together, the suit front, the shirt, the tie,
Yeah.
and it was split up the back, so you just put it on, they'd pull it behind you and tie it, and then they would take a picture of you. And
Did they throw some lira in there or some kind of local currency?
no,
Just American.
Well, American money was
Well, that was good
very
as gold.
valuable, especially over there. Then, in addition to that, of course, because of the problem with the one officer target practicing with his .45, where he almost killed some Italians on the road behind the area, we all had to turn in our guns.
What was that one?
Well, let me finish. We all had to turn in our guns. We couldn't carry them. We weren't allowed to keep them.
Okay.
So as a result, when you picked up this other stuff, you picked up your .45
Huh.
to put it on. It was with a shoulder holster. And at the end of the mission, you turned it in back with the parachute and the other stuff. What had happened was, at the end of our row of tents, our street of tents, there was a latrine for the men, and then beyond that it was just open field, but maybe 100 yards or 200 yards beyond that was a road, public road that went from Lucera up to the north. And this particular fella was out there doing a little target practice, shooting, unauthorized of course, shooting cans or something. And the executives of the squadron found out about it and said that, and rightly so, he could have killed somebody because the civilian people use that road all the time. Either shoot them or shoot their horse. So they took the guns away, and as a result we had to check them out and check them in each time. Back to I just happened to think about that mission to Hall where the B-24s dropped bombs on us. As I was walking out of the building where I picked up the parachute and all that stuff, Solowitz, who was the pilot of that plane that did get bombed by the 24s, for some reason handed me his GI issue watch, and he said, "Wear this for me today, if you will." I can't recall now why or what happened, but I took it and I put it on. So I had two watches on it. Well, I ended up with two watches because he never came back.
Wow.
So